Right, we've got ourselves a StarCraft patch update after 3 weeks of absolute silence. We've got an update June 19th today, guys. This has popped out while I was in the middle of my Age of Empires tournament today, streamer event we've been playing. And I'm like, that's awesome. We finally got some updates, some news. However, we've got a bunch of changes here. It starts with thank you everyone who participated and provided feedback during PTR1. We've made adjustments based on your feedback. We have also updated the map pool based on community requests. Problem? Map pool's not updated. I went in the PTR. The maps are the same. As you can see, there are 9 maps, but they are the old maps. Despite, I went into the PTR, opened custom games, and the other changes do seem to be in effect. So it seems this is either not fully implemented yet or only partially implemented. A few people have messaged me. They've linked me this, and they've said, actually, this doesn't have all the info on it, apparently. Apparently, this is a bit confusing or something, this Blizzard post. So this post here apparently has a bunch of stuff that's collected in a neater format that's easier to read off and kind of shows what's changed from the previous iteration of the patch. So apparently some community members threw this together so that we could actually see what the exact changes are from live game to PTR1 to what is now PTR2. So thank you, community, for this. It seems like there's a lot of things going on. All right, guys, starting workers are reduced from 12 to 8. Yep, so that's the same. The resource change is exactly the same. There's nothing changed up here. Okay, if we go down here. Okay, I see. So the actual things that have changed from the first PTR to this one are going to be highlighted. So this does make it much easier, guys. So the ghost attack was changed from 10 plus 10 versus light to 20 in PTR1. They're lowering that to 15, which means the ghost will do less damage versus light than in the live version, but more against armored. Okay, fair enough. Let's see how it goes. Movement speed reduced from 3.94 to 3.85. Now, I'm sure some people want me to scream more about the Ghost and how broken it is, or complain more about it. What are my thoughts on the Ghost so far? My thoughts are that the way Snipe works, there are situations, if the Terran has enough time to bank enough energy, even though the Ghost is 3 supply, even though Snipe is now 75 energy, which isn't... Oh, there, it's written here. It does a bit more damage, but it's uninterruptible. If you have enough time, I do think the Ghost is significantly stronger, especially against things like Broods and Ultras. Maybe not Ultras as much, but against like Brood Lords for sure. Not necessarily against Ultras. The reason why it's not better against Ultralisks is a Ghost has to lock on and snipe it. If there's Banelings in your face, you have to run away. You do not have time to snipe against Ultras until all the Banelings are cleared. So with Ultraling Bane, they can still bust areas while the Banelings chase the Ghosts away. Once the Banes have been shot down as the Ghosts run back and kite, then the Ghost can turn, and that's the moment when the Ultras need to be out of there or you are screwed. Now, the interesting thing is we've seen a few interactions where the Ghost does run out of energy. I've seen a few of these in different casts because you can only get 2 snipes at max energy for a 3 supply unit. And this is something people who just want to complain about Ghosts are ignoring. They are completely ignoring the fact that you, at max supply, should have about... You should have less Ghosts, right? Because they cost 50% more supply, so you should have significantly less Ghosts, and 2 snipes at max energy versus 4 snipes. These are significant nerfs to the amount of total snipes available in late game, and it does matter, especially if there's a bit of tempo and movement going in late game. I'm not convinced the Ghost is completely broken. I also am not convinced it's a good change. I still, at my core, wish... 2 things. I don't mind the Ghost becoming a better combat unit. Since StarCraft 2's difference with the Ghost from StarCraft 1 has been it's actually a good combat unit, I still have a big issue with EMP still being an absolute destroyer of worlds against Protoss. I think it's probably... I would love to see the EMP become the damage over time effect that drains energy and shields over time pretty rapidly, but not as instantaneously as it currently does would be cool. Or you take the current EMP and you put it on the Raven. You shift the abilities around a little bit because the Ghost is definitely such a insane centralization of power against Protoss. And it would be nice if there wasn't such that power spike there. You'd allow Archons to be so much more playable, which is a big part of Protoss's ability to spend gas on a raw combat unit later on. And there's a lot of other things you can do there. So overall, I kind of wish the Ghost would not be a one-size-fits-all Swiss Army knife. I don't mind it being a bit better in combat, having some utility in certain situations, but it still feels like the Ghost, nothing here is really addressing what I see as a bit of a problem in that the Ghost does too many things too well. and it is too central to your late game army, always against both Protoss and Zerg. Steady targeting gets changed. Yep. New medevac ability. Apparently, people have said this ability is amazing. I still haven't fully tested this ability. I've been waiting for the new PTR to come out to actually grind some. So as soon as my Age of Empires tournament's over in a few days, I will be grinding hard and testing out this new load nearby, as well as a bunch of other strategies. Okay, guys, so it looks like they've gone and adjusted the subgroup priority. So basically what they did is they made it so when you were tabbing through your units to get to your Raven or your Bio, they moved it all around. So you'll notice it was Raven, Ghost, BC, Marine, Marauder, Siege Tank. They've now changed it from Ghost, Marine plus Marauder, Raven, BC, Siege Tank, whereas they've separated Marines and Marauders because they were getting jumbled in your command card, and it meant for players who like to use that command wireframe down the bottom, it would be over like here, right? Where they'd control click on a picture of a Marine, it wouldn't select all of the Marines to pull them back from Banelings. So that was a really annoying thing that was messing with players' learned muscle memory, and just one of the good ways of microing Marines. I'm glad they removed that. That's a good adjustment. All right, so, okay, there are some influences here, guys. We've got Queens going from 175 back to 50 minerals, and hatcheries, lavas spawning hatcheries faster from 10.7 seconds. It was 10.71, actually, to be exact. I'm got to be specific, down to 9 seconds. This is a big buff to Zerg. Now, this is a lot to talk about. Is there another change in here? There's not. Okay, so none of this other stuff has really changed, right, guys? From the PTR one. It's just they've fixed the overlord speed to make it not quite as slow. Okay, these changes are good. Here's a problem. Zerg has already been doing very well on the PTR from the games I've seen. I could speak it. I've been streaming for 10 hours today, guys. You're going to have to excuse my delivery on this one. This is very much off the cuff, this video. But I've seen a lot of games where Zerg's done really well. That being said, I've seen very few PTR games overall. This is part of a bigger point where essentially if we are going through with big changes, 8 worker start, Warpgate changes, now adjusting these things to try to get the right, I like it. I just, I am worried. For me, the worry comes from inconsistent and slow input from Blizzard. Contrary to a lot of people's opinions, I don't have any control over these things. I don't understand how they're implemented, and I don't know how many resources Blizzard is willing to add to these. There is part of me that understands if these things are too ambitious and hard to balance, it's a problem. And I like these changes. I think they're a step in the right direction. I would like to see hatchery tech hydras tried out as well. One problem here is, like, are you really going to change the queen, but also keep the hatchery still 275 minerals? Like, you can make the queen cheaper, but then also make the hatchery back to its old cost at least, right? But this is two pretty significant early game buffs to Zerg, and we know early game buffs obviously can snowball. It's obviously speaking to the fact that I did a video about what else needs to change. We talked about the Zerg lava problem. I did mention we could try subtly increasing the lava production for Zerg. This is bigger than I expected. I thought going 10.7 to 10 seconds would be big, or making the queens cheaper again and flipping the queen hatchery cost, or making the macro mechanics for every faction better to encourage you to go pool first and gas pool builds. I don't know. I guess I'm just worried because I haven't seen enough PT. Here's my problems, guys. This is why, like, people want me to just drop knowledge and be like, yeah, here's an exact opinion. I don't know how these changes will wash out. I don't know how they will come out in the wash. I don't know what's gonna work, what's not gonna work, what's gonna need future changes. There's a few big worries. Number one, Blizzard's taken 3 weeks from the first issue of the PTR with very big bugs in it to come back and change anything. That is worrying for me. They've also said, hey, the maps are live now, the maps aren't live. The inconsistent and slow changes being put into StarCraft 2 are what have a lot of people very worried. And I am one of them. A lot of people are angry at me going, it's your fault. You encourage this 8 worker nonsense. And with how bad Blizzard's implementation is and how slow it is, you know, it's going to ruin the game essentially. And they're going to leave these game breaking bugs. I've been quite defensive of Blizzard on one mark, and that is the last patch they did was the first patch that Blizzard just fully did on their own without any balance council serious input or anything like that. They just went and did a patch, right? And they made some crazy changes. They actually fixed the bugs the quickest on that patch out of any patch in the last 3 years in StarCraft 2. Previously, you would get a patch, there'd be game-breaking bugs, and it would take 6 to 9 months until the next big patch when they would fix game-breaking bugs, like Colossus having extra range, Cyclones having the wrong values for the cooldown on their attacks, just really big balance-breaking bugs, and they just wouldn't fix them. The last patch, in late 2025, they actually fixed those bugs, and they actually iterated the PTR a fair bit quicker, even if it felt a little half-baked and sudden when they added some final changes like the ghost hit points and put it out. I am in a weird position because right now, just speaking to you guys openly, I want interesting changes, and I would like things where they experiment with changing the pacing, try to make Zerg a bit swarmier is what I'm trying to say. Spawn more lava, I was reading as I said that. I'd like us to play around with Warpgate, but I'm also wary of the fact that these are big sweeping changes, and with zero understanding of how many resources Blizzard's going to put towards this, I'm simply sitting on the sidelines going 3 weeks with no changes. And now some changes that seem a little half-baked, it has me a little worried. And if someone were to come to me and go, Pig, you must tell me, do you stand for these changes? Or do you think the game should just sit as it is? Part of me is like, I don't even know what to say to that. Because it truly is stuff that's outside of my realm of knowledge. I don't know how many resources Blizzard puts towards patching their game. I don't know the impact those changes are going to have. And I don't know if they're going to follow through or if they're going to go, hey, we spent a month on the PTR, here, push it to live, and then they just don't come back for 6 months. If that happens, that's really, really rough. And that's going to have me quite pissed off. So I guess for me right now, I'm in this weird state of like, hey, they're doing some exciting changes. That's cool. And then 3 weeks of nothing happening with no communication has me heavily doubting the ambitious changes that Blizzard is aiming for. Even though I, and some of the discussion I've been a big part of, have inspired some of those changes, I'm in a weird spot right now where like I think change is always good in a game like StarCraft 2 that gets so figured out if you don't add new things and adjust things and try to break certain metas. But I'm kind of in a very weird spot right now where I am not passing judgment yet, but I would really, really plead with Blizzard, guys, please, some communication, some more frequent updates, anything. Yeah, I don't know, because I with this current pace, I don't know, unless they're willing to do months on the PTR, I don't know if they're going to be able to get this to a well-balanced state. And it doesn't need to be perfectly balanced, but it needs to be at least generally balanced and generally in the right direction. When you do make an omelet, you are going to have to break some eggs. But you don't want to just basically make a floor omelet where you take a carton of eggs and you just smash the eggs on the floor and you're like, it's an omelet. There's I'd like us to break some eggs into a fry pan rather neatly and use some technique to make said omelet, not just smash eggs on the floor of the kitchen. I guess I'm just a bit worried. I'm a bit worried. Lack of communication has me worried. I'm trying not to be an angry gamer who just flies off their handle and goes, you guys suck, you're ruining my game. But I'm also just very unsure what's going on behind the scenes, and I wish Blizzard would communicate. That would be great. All right, guys, Warpgate is moved from the gateway to the cybercore. They've removed this. This should have happened 2 days after the friggin' PTR came out. I don't know why this hasn't happened till now. Like, this was such a weird change that made it so awkward to play Protoss. Thankfully, they are doing it. It's good they're doing it. I wish they did it sooner. Warpgate research speeds up gateway unit production time by 40%. I love it. Go for it. If you're not able to warp in units all over the map, you should get rewarded for it. Transform to Warpgate cost is increased. No, okay, so they've reduced. It was 50-50 before. Now it's 25-25. Warpgates were really expensive, so they're making that a bit cheaper. Fair call. Fair call. Okay, no worries. I don't know. To me, I wouldn't mind it still costing more. I still think the direction here is stick with the original cost for the warp gates, but buff the regular gateway production more, or just don't have cost. I don't know. For me, there's like 2 paths here. Like, I don't like this 25-25. It just feels like, why? Why are we, like, I would rather that just be free, and it's just like, hey, you get a really sick boost if you don't use warp gates, or you can just use warp gates like they currently are. So that's one path. The other path I would go is warp gates stay really expensive. You do get nerfed in that regard, but you get some cool bonus upgrades to your Protoss gateway units. that give them extended power and utility later on, especially when things like EMP, Widow Mines, Banelings come in that are so good at basically ripping away the power of Zealots especially. And then obviously Stalkers don't scale well to the later stages, at least especially compared to things like Marines, Marauders, Hydras, you could say. It's not really an early game unit, but it is a unit that kind of is like a massable unit that kind of works like a gateway unit in function. And Protoss doesn't quite have a unit like that. It would be cool if there was some more upgrades to add some bonuses there. Warp in spawn time is no longer determined by slow power fields. They are going to make the warp in spawn time decrease to 4 seconds from 3.6 and 11.4. Okay. So what they did is they buffed the fast warp in time, guys, from 3.6 seconds to 3 seconds. And now they're going back and making it 4 seconds, slightly longer. Shrug shoulders. I don't know why you're doing that. This seems like fiddling for no reason. Okay. Okay, so they're changing a bunch of the pre-Warpgate training times for the units. Okay, so they were going to change all these. They're reverting all these unnecessary changes. So they made a whole bunch of changes to gateway unit build time before Warpgate's done, just to make it symmetrical with like so the build time after could be a flat minus 40%, and it was all very neat, but it just felt a bit unnecessary. So sure, that changes, no worries. And we've got post-Warpgate time values now. Okay, so you can see they're a bit faster. This is producing out of a gateway after Warpgate finishes, but without transforming it into a Warpgate, because you have to pay money to do that now. It's quite complicated, I know, it's a bit hard to follow. Shield batteries will now always start with 75 energy upon construction completion. Okay, nerfing shield battery a little bit, that's fine. That being said, I believe if you build this near a Nexus or away from a Nexus, doesn't matter anymore, as far as I know. Because I think that previously the shield battery would start with 50 energy if it was away from your base. So if you're using an aggressive shield battery, it would spawn with only half energy. You built it near your base, it would start with full energy. Now they're just splitting the difference. Yeah, okay. Sentry hallucinations automatically inherit the current order queue. Yep, no changes here, guys. And no changes down here. Maybe this is new. Fix an issue where auto turret did not receive Terran structure armor upgrades. Roach Rapid Regen passive icon now displays research requirement status of burrow. If the mule's cooldown target is not a mineral field, it is now set to auto cast by default. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so if you drop a mule to repair your battlecruiser or your Thor, it's automatically going to repair your stuff. That's cute. All right, yeah. Help people doing cheesy all-ins, I guess, and none of this has changed. Okay. Okay, so if we think about this, guys, the biggest changes are here, Zerg Lava buff, making warp... Yeah, so we've got Zerg Lava buff, Queen's getting cheaper. Great news for Zerg players. I do think the answer to Zerg generally, if you really want to address Zerg fundamental issues, though, it's more about you want to make Zerg more swarmy. You want to make Zerg encouraged and rewarded for getting out of the map. There are a few big mechanics in StarCraft 2 with its core design, which are very cool things, very unique to StarCraft 2, that also have over time led to Zerg getting pushed into a corner. One of these is creep spread. Creep spread is insane in StarCraft 2. It gives a massive, massive defender's advantage, encourages you to not fight off creep. The other thing is the Queen, a unit which is incredibly powerful, incredibly tanky, and can defend everything in the early game. Also, only mobile on creep, very defensive unit, not aggressive. So creep and queens are a good example of interesting and fun, kind of unique, I would say, game design. It's very like thematic to Zerg, but it also does lead to Zerg being more defensive. The other part is, of course, the lack of lava in Legacy of the Void. Problem is, if you just go back and you make queens cheaper, and you make the lava spawn faster, Zergs have already figured out, especially guys like Serral, who are the gods of the game, how to win in the current state of StarCraft 2. So if you do want to make Zerg swarmier, you also want to weaken some of their units a little bit, potentially. You want there to be some push and pull, right? Some given, target. And I give, but I take some away, unless you give a bit of power boost to all the factions, which is why one of my main suggestions was to potentially boost the lava either less than this. This is a bit extreme in my opinion. That's a pretty big percentage for such a fundamental boost to your early game production. The other one though is we'll see how it maps out. I need experience with it to know. This might not be as big as I think. I'm wary. The other one was just buff chrono, buff mules, buff lava injects, and go back in that direction in terms of where that pushes things. Beyond that, I think it's really good they're addressing this Warpgate change. Having to research Warpgate out of a gateway was one of the most awkward things. If you're trying to do something huge like redesigning Warpgate and you put Warpgate research on the gateway where you can't build fighting units out of your only defensive structure in the early game, it completely broke all Protoss builds in a patch that was also only allowing you have to now start with 8 workers, so your builds are broken. Also, you can't make research out of your Cybercore. You have to make it out of your gateway. Breaks your builds again. Oh, also, Warp Gates, what all Protoss builds are based on, have been completely changed. You have to pay for them now. So you had 3 different things breaking Protoss builds at once. It's so hard to test things. And I think this was a real big snafu. It's such a shame we've wasted 3 weeks of a public test realm patch on a version that has such a huge crucial mistake in that regard. I assume there's technical issues under the hood with patching StarCraft, which is why they haven't fixed it earlier. But to me, from the outside, with no insight, it's hard to have empathy for an opaque system. When you can't see where the problems derive from because there's no communication, frustration is a natural response to that. So I'm trying to both be as kind as I can, because I appreciate there's people at Blizzard who are they probably could never patch StarCraft, and no one in the higher-ups would care. I imagine there's higher-ups at Blizzard who just do not care at all if it gets completely left to rot. Because if it's not making $1 billion a month on mobile game transactions, I know that's often the mindset of a lot of higher-ups in gaming companies these days. So I appreciate the people who are working hard for it. At the same time, I do wish they could communicate more with us, let us know what the difficulties are, or just give us some sort of updates, because it so often feels with these things like, okay, where is any official communication or updates? 3 weeks on a broken patch is a real big problem. Other thing, guys, there's nothing here in this list about Terran, right? Am I blind? What about the command center? The orbital command bug is not written here. Is it written on this post? Okay, this is written here. Orbital command no longer grants extra 2 supply. That's one of the most egregious bugs as well. Terran was getting 2 extra supply the moment they clicked upgrade to orbital on all their command centers, and that was just giving them a really smooth opening. A lot of the big adjustment with 8 workers was players struggling with the second pylon, second depot, second overlord timing, and trying to figure out exactly when to optimize that. Terran players have not had to go through that because they've just been getting 2 supply for free every game, and it makes their builds much easier, which has been kind of frustrating to watch. Once again, 3 weeks of fundamentally broken PTR has been very disappointing. I'm frustrated. I have to express that. This is my job as a content creator around this game. Please do better. Please update the game faster. Please get these updates out faster. And I cannot wait. I'm very busy with my Age of Empires tournament over the next 2 days, guys. But I want to play the new maps. I want to play the new balance. And I'm hoping these new map pool can come out soon, because I was very disappointed to see no maps here. We might squeeze a couple games in over the next few days during the tournament, but after that, we will be able to no live StarCraft for a day or two, get acclimated with the new changes. I've been so keen to try Protoss as a non-Warpgate Protoss in SC2, figure out its weaknesses, figure out what's really bad about it, what needs changing, what's strong about it, what's fun about it. We've wasted 3 weeks. Let's get a move on Blizzard, and I really hope we can actually get this properly implemented with the maps in the next day or two, so we can actually get out there and test it. Thank you for watching, guys. If I sound a bit frustrated and listless in this video, it's because I am. I'm very annoyed at the patching of StarCraft 2 right now. It's leaving me disappointed and frustrated, and I hope Blizzard can get their stuff together, because I think it's great they're being ambitious with these changes. I just want to see the ball move faster and a little bit more communication so that we as a community can actually respond, criticize, and iterate on things. If not, I would hate to say it, but I may have to at some point agree with the kind of negative naysayers in the community, say, just reset the game to a pretty balanced patch. And just change, or just fix a few, like keep the changes really small, because, you know, if there's not enough resources to implement things correctly, or we're not testing things correctly, we might as well just make the game, you know, stable at least. Stale maybe, but stable, yes. I don't want to have to go to that side of the community. I know some people have been adamant about that for a long time. I would rather change and fresh things and fun things to figure out. I've really enjoyed the pacing of the 8 worker start, but I also still have huge question marks about other things. I didn't talk about it in this video, guys. Once I play more with these updated changes, we'll talk about it more. But if we look back at these changes, it's the economy changes. I'm still not sure about these mineral patch changes. I do think this may make turtle play too strong in the long term. And as much as I do think there are some fun strategies that arise from these two economy changes in tandem, I think this one specifically could lead to certain things like Turtle Sky Toss and Turtle Mech potentially getting out of hand, especially in the Platinum to Diamond range of ladder. And I know a lot of people don't care about that, but that is where most StarCraft players exist. The majority of the people who play the majority of games are in that middle part of the ladder, and I am worried if there is too much Turtle Mech and too much Sky Toss Spine Cannons, that there's going to be a lot of people pretty frustrated on the ladder. Some people love playing those styles, but I would guess about 70% of the community kind of refer to them as cancerous and painful to play against. So I don't want those to get too strong. They're going to get a little bit stronger if you change the minerals in the main base no matter what. Changing every base like this so they take longer to mine out really allows them a lot longer on 3 base to take a slower 4th and slowly move forwards. And that's going to be something which could be an issue. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. And some updates once we actually know, is this patch legit? What's happening with it? And with the future problems that will need to be addressed. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Goodbye and good night.